Hello and welcome to Film Companion South. This is Ask BR and we are going to be talking about Sathru and Boomerang, unfortunately, which released last week and which I have gone all out. A lot of people said, dude, your review is so brutal, but I just couldn't handle it in the sense that if a first time filmmaker makes this kind of a movie and this kind of writing, you kind of at least say, okay, there's no experience, but when somebody who's made some 7-8 movies does this, anyway, let's go to the first question. It's by Saran Raj, who says, how do you think the career graph of Kathir is growing with him choosing more versatile scripts out of the usual commercial stuff like Vijay Sethupathi? I think it's a little too early to make that comparison. And also, let's not forget that Vijay Sethupathi was really helped by his association with some of the most iconic films and filmmakers of that period, like Pizza or Nadula Pancham and things like that. Whereas here with Kathir, he has definitely been choosing very interesting films, or at least the people who make interesting films have been looking at him. Like he had a very interesting role in Vikram Veda. He had a fantastic role in a fantastic movie which is Pariyaram Perumal. He had an interesting role in a not really interesting film in Sigai, which is kind of all over the place. It's that web movie which I didn't really care for. But now Sathru again is a pretty decent film. So I don't know. I think we'll have to wait and watch. But I think this can work two ways. So even if he doesn't go looking for interesting scripts, if filmmakers come who make these slightly offbeat things come looking at him, and if he says yes and he doesn't want to do this typical star stuff, then that can also work for him. So let's pray one of the two happens. Aditya Ravi says, do you think this trend of making mystery thrillers with innovative screenplays was given a boost by Durvangal Padinaru? What do you think is missing, needs improvement? Would you like to see in these movies like Sathru, Tadam or Rakshasan, if it's legit to club them together? Yeah, I think Durvangal Padinaru was something after a long time. You just got that thing with a twist, right, after a long time. And it was also like one of the movies that began this trend of new filmmakers making small films with big impact. What do I think needs improvement? I think it's the writing, because in Sathru is actually the writing is not bad, but the making I think they couldn't get the budget that they wanted. So the ideas were there, but it didn't quite translate to screen in terms of the technique is what I'm trying to say, which is why even in my review I said, see, that's not as much of a problem because technique can still be learnt. Feel for the medium cannot be taught, and that this director has, Naveen Nanjundan has. Tadam, again, I had a problem with some of the writing because I felt that the flashback is where the emotional bond and all that is established, and that wasn't strong enough. So when we come back to the present, we just don't take it as well. And Rakshasan, again, I was a little, I guess it's not too, we can give spoilers now, it's a pretty old movie, but in case we still want to watch it, I think that whole thing, going back and blaming something on love failure, I think that's again is something that's been happening for too long. So I think if I were to change one thing, I would just say, like, I'd love the twist, and I love Rakshasan is a very well directed film. That atmosphere, the way the director made that happen was brilliant. So I would say that you have a lot of very young and talented filmmakers, but I would say the writing is where, people need to pay more attention to. Adrian David asks, since time immemorial, most Tamil films have showcased cops be invincible larger than life, so that donning the khaki is on every actor's bucket list. Only a handful of films such as Visarane, Vazhakkiyan and Sathru have broken the mold. Thoughts on this? Absolutely, because see, the other thing is, I'm just so happy that all these questions are about Sathru, which is like the nobody expected much out of it, but it's turning out to be a really, I don't know, I hope people are watching it because it's definitely worth a watch, worth your while. But yeah, usually what happens is actors look at cop movies as, listen, for my career, I need to do a cop role because, that is going to help me get ahead in my career and stuff like that, because Rajinikanth has these iconic cop roles and, Vijay has it and all these kinds of things. And that logic becomes, if I make a cop masala movie that works, then everybody will come. And that is always a larger than life role. So to find a cop role that's invincible, I wouldn't include Vazhakkiyan in this because that's not really like an action movie kind of thing. But when you talk, or even Visarane for that matter, but when Sathru is a very interesting thing because you have a young actor and you have a cop role, and these two combinations usually, end up in this hero, like it's my time to be a hero kind of movie. But to see a young hero and a cop equally matched with a young villain, and you don't know, like the body count on both sides is happening because, not actually, no, the villain loses only one person from his side, but the hero keeps losing people from his side. And I think that's really something, because it's not a larger than life situation at all. It's an evenly matched situation, and that's really what makes Sathru work. Surada asks, most movies in Tamil have a love track in which they claim to insert for mass audiences, but almost every single love track is criticized for speed killing the story, but this trend continues forever. Do producers, directors knowingly commit suicide? It's perplexing. I think you're asking about Boomerang, which has this phenomenally ridiculous love track in which some girl says she's looking for a guy to act in a film, and then walks into a bar and then says, "Oh, this guy is so charming, let him act in my film." It's so bizarre, and I think people do that because they think directors do that because you cannot have a movie, or maybe you cannot sell a movie without a hero heroine angle or whatever. But I don't know, because when you look at despite the success of many films without exactly a huge love angle, I don't know, we still get this. And I think it's a bit of conventional wisdom. One reason definitely is, one producer told me long back, is the reason they want a love track is so that they can have a love song. And that song can be used on TV channels for promotion. But I'm saying, can't this song be like something shot separately for promotions? Does it have to be something that is part of the movie? I don't know. I mean, you can just shoot it and then leave it out of the movie, right? Because if it's still going to kill thing, because now in Boomerang you have 45 minutes of where nothing is happening. The story is set up, and then you go into a love track which does nothing. You go into a comedy track that does nothing. You're just waiting to get back to the main story. So I'm like, why waste all that time? In fact, even one thing that's always perplexing is when people have 5 or 6 songs in a movie. Of course, now they don't do that much anymore. But almost all the time, I've been watching movies since time immemorial, right? And people just get up and go out during when the song starts and come back after the song finishes. It's like, when they want to use the loo or go get popcorn or whatever it is, that's what they do. And it's like, I don't know, don't people notice this, that this is what happens during a song? I don't know. Maybe they are knowingly committing suicide. Batman says, Atharvaa is good looking and acts decent enough. Why can't he select a good script for the love of God? Yeah, if you see him in Paradesi, it's such a powerful kind of role, right? And he's got this unique face which is so intense. That's one thing I always notice about his face. There's a lot of intensity. Even when he's seemingly doing nothing, it just seems like, blazing with all this stuff. And yeah, I don't know why he cannot select a good script. You should ask him this question. James Carnival says, could see some people calling Sathru as first commercial movie for Kathir. At the same time, Sathru has no commercial compromises like unnecessary love portions on songs. What's your definition of commercial movie? And is Sathru a commercial movie? I think commercial movie is a term which just means commercially viable movie. So what I think you mean is Sathru a non-mainstream movie? It's not. It's a mainstream movie. Because like I've said earlier, in Tamil cinema, we don't have a tradition of an art film. So everything pretty much falls into the mainstream bucket. It's just that in some mainstream movies are a little more lyrical or poetic or more focused on like a narrative, versus some mainstream movies go towards the more crowd pleasing, or what they think is crowd pleasing end of the spectrum, which has all these fights and songs and comedy track and things like that. This falls, I think, neatly in the middle, because I think on the one hand it's not getting to be too, like, even if you make a Visarana, not everybody want to go and watch it because they might say, it's too gritty for me or whatever it is. And then it's not, but it does this, Sathru does this nice balancing act of, like, if you want to just go and sit in a movie in an evening and say, I want to give me a good time, it does that. But it also does that with respect for the audience. They really respect the audience, and they're not throwing crap at you just because you bought a movie ticket. They're saying, okay, I want to work hard and make this movie seem something. And you can see that hard work on screen, which means they're respecting the audience, and that's what I really like about it. Prithvi Krishna says, do you think that a hero to transform into a star takes a conscious route to include social message in his film, and that leads to a half-cooked plot like Boomerang? Yeah, I never understood this. Like, have you known any audience member saying, I really need to see that movie because that movie has a social message? I have never known any such mythical person in my life. And I'm assuming that they don't exist in the real world either. So who is this person that these social message movies are being made for? And why do critics still keep saying, படம் அவ்வளோ நல்லா இல்லை ஆனால் நல்ல மெசேஜ் இருக்குது? So what? If the படம் has a நல்ல message but it's not good, then it's not a good movie. The message is something that is not making the movie. The message has to be told and put out in a convincing way. And that's what it is. It's like, and Boomerang does it very badly. Adrian Devin again asks, a recent trend in Tamil cinema is piggybacking on socio-political. I think that's what this earlier question was, socio-political issues to sell a commercial narrative. While few of these films are seamless, most seem force-fitted, and Boomerang is no exception. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. It has to be fitted into the narrative. It has to be, there has to be a certain focus on it. It has to come organically. You can't just say, I'm going into the flashback and then showing this narrative. All of a sudden, you get something that is so random. At least some hints should be strewn throughout the movie. And the thing is, there's also something like responsibility, because I had this with Kathir, for instance. When you have a very serious issue about farmer suicides and things like that, once you get into that situation, you're also having a song like Selfie Puller. I don't know, something doesn't compute, because the tone of this is one thing, the tone of this is another. And it seems like you're almost disrespecting the issue by getting into this. I know some people will say, yeah, but it's a hero film. People want this lightening of mood, because they don't want the mood to be made lighter, because they can't take that heavy thing for too long. But really, I don't know, then it's kind of disrespecting the issue, right? Then why don't you take something that can accommodate this light mood, like Dhool did, for instance, where there was a water issue, but it was not as serious enough to not warrant all these songs. It just worked very well. How's the Rogan Josh asks, why can't actors like Atharvaa and other young actors attend screenwriting classes to at least determine if the director can write a good script? This is a fantastic question, because one thing that I've heard from people in the industry is that most actors here, even the big stars, and I can't name names here, but I've heard some shocking names, don't know how to read a script. Like if you give them a script, they will always say, narration kudunga sir. They only want the script to be narrated. And even when you're narrating the story, I've heard this from many young directors, they always want to go to the parts where they are there. That is where the hero comes in. They're not interested in the story development. They're not interested in how the screenplay goes up and down. They only want to know, is this a big scene for me? Is this a good scene for me? Is this scene going to make sense? So yeah, the screenplay reading sense has to really improve, because I'll tell you one thing. When the director narrates it, a lot of good directors may be very good screenplay writers, but they may not be the best of narrators. So you may lose out on a good screenplay because the director is not a good narrator of the script. Secondly, the other way around, a director may be a very convincing talker, but then, idu pannidala sir, in the scene like idu pannidala sir, and all that can happen, but then the screenplay can be really lousy. So you have to read it yourself, so that your mind is making the reading and absorbing the thing as it goes along, so you know where the problems are, you know where the strengths are. And if you don't do that, you're always going to rely on luck to give you a good movie, and that is never a bad thing. So until the next Ask BR, thank you for watching, and do subscribe to Film Companion South.